Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Super Anime Bros podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rosario, joined by my brother, Angelo. And today we're going to talk about something we love.
Welcome back, everybody. So we're coming at you with an extra special episode.
Oh, yeah, extra contentious.
We hinted at a little bit last week at the end of the podcast. We're going to discuss sub versus dub. You know, what's better, what we both like.
Yeah, what we both like better.
You know, as I stated, I think it's a preference thing, so we're going to talk about some of our preferences right here.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that this can be a pretty heated debate online and pretty heated topic. So we're going to try to not do that because I do think there's value in both. Obviously, everybody has their preference, and that's totally cool. But I do think that there's pros and cons to both, you know? Like, there's a time and a place where I'll want to watch one, and there's a time and a place where I want to watch the other, you know? And I think you can agree with that probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I like, you know, a little bit of both. And I really think that the heated debate online is stupid. And, like, there's no reason to look down on somebody because they watch it dubbed or be like, oh, it's so stupid. Why would I ever want to read subtitles? Because both really do add value, and it's really a preference thing. So,
yeah, without a doubt. I think first, you know, we'll kind of talk about sub, then we'll talk about dub. I would say after that we can reveal our preferences, but I guess that'll probably be evident in our discussion of...
Yeah, should we take our stances right now?
I mean, yeah.
Because I don't think, like, there is a spectrum there. I think you're a little more hardcore to your side, but yeah. I would say I'm pretty in the middle.
Yeah.
So, I'll start.
Go ahead.
I think both, as we mentioned, both really add value. I don't know if I lean one way. I feel like nowadays I watch more subbed because that's what's coming out. And, you know, one of the benefits we'll talk about is accessibility with the sub. It's easier to find because not every show gets dubbed. They don't always license every show.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true.
I think I have preferences based on genre more so. Like romance, I usually watch subbed. But more like shonen fighting shows, I really do prefer to watch dubbed.
Yeah, and I can understand
which
that.
I'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll add in when we get to the pros and cons. But that's where I stand. I'd say somewhere pretty close to the middle. I don't know if I really... Like, if I could only do one for the rest of my life, I might pick dub.
Yeah.
But that's just because it's a little easier to watch. And if it's the only thing I can do, I think that's what I would pick.
Yeah. The good news is I don't think you'll have to make that choice in your life of only having one.
Yeah, fortunately so.
That's good. I definitely think I lean sub. I don't know that... Well, I do know that. It definitely hasn't always been this way. Something that we talked about leading into this is, like, we wouldn't watch as much anime as we do or really watch anime at all if we didn't first discover dubbed anime. Like, I think that helped ease into it a little bit. I don't know if you would agree with the way I word that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that I definitely, at the beginning, we watched everything dubbed. Do you remember what the first thing we watched sub was?
I think the first thing we watched was the first episode of season 5 of My Hero. That was the first episode we ever watched.
That's so interesting.
I don't remember what the first show was. Because we watched that. We watched the Kaguya movie subbed in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
Our first dubbed or sub-only show.
Yeah, put some thought into that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Hopefully it'll come to us before the episode's over.
I watched the first episode of Attack on Titan with some friends in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely the first thing for me. That was predating the My Hero Season 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess I watched a little bit more of that in sub as well, as people were watching it. There was a craze in college for a time where everybody was watching it, getting caught up and all. But yeah, I think where I'm at now, I prefer the sub. I guess as this is the first one we'll talk about, I'll just kind of get into why.
Yeah,
if that's
go
cool
right
with you,
ahead.
go into pros and cons. You know, you tell me what you agree with, what you disagree with. But for me, I I like sub better because it's the original. It's what it was meant to be. It was how it's made. I value the original translation, the original intent of it, the original performances by the actors, the seiyuu. I just, in thinking of an artist's intent of creating something, a story, a show, I like to be as close to what they, were going for. I really find value in that, and that's not to say that dubs completely strip that away. Like, there's definitely some value there, which we'll get into. But I think that as far as my argument for sub, it being the original is the biggest pull for me. Accessibility, which you also said, it's just easier to find because not everything's dubbed. That's certainly something I would say is a pro. Comes out before the dub, even when there is a dub.
Yeah, I added that.
Yeah, I like
Bob
that.
before
I
we
like
started.
That. Thoughts on that? If you had?
I mean, dude, if like everybody who's been listening to the podcast, they know that stuff's your bread and butter. Original intent and being able to see it sooner than later. Like, that's just you. Which I respect that. I don't feel that strongly about it. Like, because you've mentioned that even with like manga to anime, them putting something different.
The manga is the gospel. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've said it. You are a big fan of the original intent, which I get that. Like, if I made like a song or something, I don't really think I would mind if people cover it, but I would still want them to think mine's the best.
Yeah, okay. That was a really good analogy. I like that a lot.
Yeah, but I think like even just continuing that analogy, like there's plenty of song covers that are better than the original.
Mm-hmm. Can I have an example?
Hurt, Johnny Cash covering the what is that, 9 Inch Nails?
Pretty good cover. That's a pretty good cover.
That's always the first one that comes to mind. All Along the Watchtower with Jimi Hendrix. Okay. I know you're on your Bob Dylan phase.
I am, yeah.
There's just like plenty that have just like completely surpassed. Even I'd say like still Bob Dylan. I'd say I like the Guns N' Roses version of Knocking on Heaven's Door better.
Mm-hmm.
But like. So it's kind of like that, but without the original, you wouldn't have the cover. So I think the original still does deserve tons and tons of respect. And I think generally speaking, like that's fine if you want like the sub better. I don't think anybody's really going to debate and say like, oh, this dub's like 10 times better. I think there's a couple shows that are like, at least here in America, that are like generally listened to more in the dub.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Well, one show that's generally listened to more in the dub.
I think it's a few, and I think it's some of the things that were first coming over here. Because not only did we ease into anime, but over, in the West, I think we've all eased into anime. And a lot of that starts with dubbing shows when we were kids. So I think those are the shows that are still the ones that are more popular over here in English, which we'll get into in a little bit. One other pro, like I think, especially with the seiyuu or the voice actors, I just think they put a lot more emotion into it. I think that there's maybe generally an overall better quality. It's easier to be annoyed by a specific voice or something, or think that it's not done right when it's in your own language. You understand all of the nuances. You're more familiar with the language and how people sound and say things. Not to say like it's right to just be annoyed by somebody's voice, but that is the reality, that you can just not like something like that.
We'll get into that a little bit when we're talking about the dubs.
But another thing about recording the anime in Japan is that I've read that a lot of the seiyuu get to record together. So it's like there's actual... what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Synergy?
Yeah, sure. That's a good one. When it's being recorded versus dub, which we'll talk about, I feel like it's just a machine.
Yeah, I like, even just coming from me, like as like when I would perform, with music again, we'll bring it back to music. Like, I always like performing with a group, not like a huge group, but like with a band better, because like you can really feed off of each other's energy.
Yeah.
And like, and that's energy. So I can, like, I wouldn't want to just sit in a recording studio all day and just read lines. I mean, I would love to do that as a job, like an anime job. That would be awesome. But I'd much rather, like, get to work with my fellow actors.
Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
And like, as far as like the production quality, just to add, there's a lot more money put into the anime industry in Japan.
The original,
like way more into like the voice acting in particular. The voice actors there are a little more renowned, I would say. And
the top
substantially
people, for sure.
more. Like like some of the top voice actors in Japan are like normal celebrities. So they definitely put a lot more money into it so they can get more production value out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, as far as like production, like equipment and all, because that's really not that difficult to get a nice quality sound these days.
Yeah, right.
In a good studio.
Listen to us.
I mean, our microphone is not bad, man.
This is a nice studio we have, the kitchen table.
But that's just something else to consider when you're talking as far as like it sounding a little better, is that they have more money to produce it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. But yeah, I think those are some of the reasons why I like it better. Is there anything there that you like about it that I didn't say or we didn't discuss already?
No, I just wanted to add the thing about like the production value.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like me, I'll be honest.
Go for it. I know
when we're talking
saying,
subs here, one of the reasons why I always do like watching the romance is I think that like the Japanese language just sounds way cuter.
Mm-hmm.
Which
when spoken by the love interest.
Yeah, I don't know. I always just like that more. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I get jittery. Like, it's great.
No, I get it.
But I think that does go both ways sometimes when, like, I'm watching one of the shonen shows and, like, the language just doesn't sound as, like, tough sometimes when, like, a character's, like, yelling or something or, you know. So, I think that goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I think the language being just so structured so differently, I think affects how I enjoy it, at least.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there for sure. We talk a little bit about some of the potential cons now with subtitles.
I already kind of mentioned the one with the voices, but I said it goes both ways.
Oh, I didn't even write that there.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so the other potential
cons. No, you let us into it. It can, and I think this might be why, maybe it's one of the reasons why, aside from the voices, you prefer action stuff in English, is because it can be sometimes difficult to focus on what's happening when you're also reading the whole time. Like, people read faster than other people, so some people, you can speed read it and then see what's happening. Or you can just take the whole image in at once and read and watch. But I think that it is definitely more difficult. You have to be very focused for particularly like action set pieces when you're reading and watching. I think that can be seen as a con. I don't know.
I agree. That's like the other reason why I like watching action shows and listening to them in English. It's because I can really focus on the action and just really give 100% of my attention to what's going on. Like, I read pretty quick, and that. Like, you've seen me reading manga, and you're like, how you read it so
you're just
quick,
not
man.
taking in the images, I think.
No, I'm absorbing. I just read kind of quick. But it's the same reason why I don't really like to read manga for action shows too.
Yeah,
I like to really just soak in what's going on screen.
Yeah.
Which you can do that, but also your eyes are looking more towards the bottom. Like, I can kind of look at it all at once, but it's certainly easier to watch like an action show if it's in my own language.
Yeah, I think you're definitely correct about that. And the second thing I have here is just different cultural differences and references. Like, I don't know if there's specific words that don't really translate well. They'll find a translation, but in the dub they'll kind of localize that a little bit better, and then also references and stuff. Like, if they're referencing something that we just don't understand from either their popular culture, their history, just something we don't get, obviously that's a little bit of a barrier.
Yeah, especially for us big reference guys.
Huge reference guys. Yeah, that reference is out of control. Yeah, so I think that is also a potential con that is somewhat course corrected through the dub. Then you could also argue, or how I would argue, when they localize stuff that it's not the original intent, and yes, we don't understand it, but it was the original. It's
I think I'd rather have like in a English or American reference thrown in there rather than one I don't understand.
Yeah, I get
but
that.
also it's nice to know the actual reference. Like I'm thinking like if in Dan to Dan, if like the whole thing with Okarun, his name is Ken? What's the guy's name?
Yeah, I don't.
He's named after a very famous like actor in Japan
Yeah.
that Momo has a crush on. Like, if you're completely just watching it in English and you don't really know the reference, like you're not going to enjoy it as much. I know the reference because you told me the reference.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't watch like Japanese TV, so
Yeah.
I don't really, besides anime, of course.
Yeah.
So like that kind of thing. But then if they, in the English dub, if they had like changed it to like some English actor's name, I'd think that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that kind of can be a preference thing, whether you enjoy that or not. I can understand why you would want to do that, so people understand. Not for like people who aren't as into anime as us with some of these things that we know that they don't.
Yeah.
But I could also completely understand wanting to just have it pretty much as it was intended to be.
Yeah.
Originally intended to be.
Thank you. They do reference Steph Curry in Blue Box in Japanese. That was
Dude, we
pretty
got
cool,
it.
Like
We
we
got it.
understood
Well,
that reference.
Yeah, I understood that one.
That was great.
Maybe they localized it. Do you think they
What a
did?
good show. What do you mean they
No, I'm
localized
kidding.
it?
They didn't do it. They
Yeah.
just had him record one line for like the American audience differently.
Yeah, so I think that kind of wraps it up. There's definitely some good things, some things that could rub people the wrong way. Anything else you can think of con wise?
No, I mean, yeah, just I think we covered everything.
I'd agree. Would you like to be the dub advocate?
Yeah, I feel like I usually am between the two of us. So let's talk some pros of dub, because there are some, believe it or not.
Pro dub.
I don't know. I just don't get why people look down on other people for watching it. I think that's just dumb. Like, just let the people enjoy the same show. Like,
I do agree.
Like, I'll be like looking at like a One Piece post and they're like, "Oh, the dub is so trash," and I'm like, I don't know. Like, what's bad about it? Like, can you name one thing besides it's not the original?
Well, I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, nobody can because there's no problems with it. Yeah, so let's talk some pros. Biggest one, obviously, is it's in your own language. As I've mentioned before, like being able to just focus completely on what's going on the screen and just listening, it really, it's very nice. And that goes hand in hand with it is easier to watch.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to give it like 100% attention, which is nice for, people in this day with, I feel like almost everybody's got ADD these days. So being able to watch it and not have to give like 100% attention, like, when we want to eat something while we're watching TV, we can't really do that with subbed. So dub does have that advantage and a little more freedom in that sense, which I think is great. And this is something you added, which is, I guess, kind of
You just talked about it.
a double-edged blade, is that sometimes the liberties that they take can be great and add value. I think there's some shows we're going to talk about at the end here that I think they really do add value with the dub. And I think it's nice when they do take some liberties when, I don't know, I would say when they're good. Sometimes they're not always great, but that's a preference thing. It really is.
Yeah.
I like it when they make it different because that makes me want to watch both. Because if I just, when watching people basically narrate the subtitles, I already watch it with the subtitles.
Yeah.
I like something a little different, and I always like something with a little more like comedic elements in it and make the comedy, more understandable for somebody who's English or American, like I.
Yes, yeah. I think the comedy in general is like one of the biggest things with either the cultural references or just words in general. Like, it just translates a lot better when it's localized, I think.
Yeah, like, because there's like Japanese slang and there's American slang. Two very different things.
You don't say, yeah.
Say something like that, and then like, oh, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I didn't comprehend that it's different because the subtitles don't say it.
Yeah.
And then, then you'll see the dub and they'll say, like, somebody's poggers. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I can see why you would be annoyed by that,
I agree.
guess.
Well, I mean, that specific example, I think it's funny, but also, like, it's kind of like, it's silly. But maybe what
But
they...
who knows what they said in
Yeah,
Japanese?
exactly.
They
Maybe
could have
what
said
they
something
originally
that
said
was
was,
silly.
I don't know if they have poggers.
Well, I'm sure they have some stupid stuff. I don't really
Yeah.
talk in, like, Twitch lingo, but poggers
Yeah.
is kind of funny.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think obviously hearing your own language is just such a natural thing. But what you touched on about being able to do other things while watching it is one of the biggest pros for me. Like I watched a lot of original Naruto while also like playing video games, so I'm taking it all in, and I can have my eyes on it.
I don't think you're taking it all.
No,
man.
I took it in pretty well. I can have my eyes on it a lot, depending on what I'm playing. If it's FIFA, I'm just like, I'll kick the ball, look down, go back to the, But also, like, I think I just watched Full Metal in English, and, like, I had it on my phone for, like, 3 days straight, doing a bunch of different stuff. Like, I remember I was doing laundry, and I had the phone there. I was, watching it, but also I could do the laundry as well. That was awesome. That made mundane tasks, a lot more enjoyable. If I'm like laying down in bed and watching it on my phone, like I just think it's easier to have the English because sometimes, you'll close your eyes when you're laying in bed. How that goes. The eating is a great example. Like if we're eating and watching a show, it's much easier to do when it's in English. That kind of ability to multitask.
Yeah, it's
Big
a beautiful thing.
Big for a guy like
Which
me.
honestly, we should have mentioned back in subs.
Yeah.
Reading the subtitles does help you pay attention and focus and make sure you don't miss as many details.
Yeah, that could be a struggle, but that is also a good
Like,
thing.
I
yes.
remember when we saw the Ava movie in the theaters.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
watched it subtitled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I almost understand
I almost
this.
understand. Almost.
Like, I didn't understand. Maybe because it was my second watch through, but I think because I was reading it
Yeah.
and paying attention.
Yeah.
Because, like, in English, they're saying words that I understand what the words are. But I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell does this mean?
Yeah.
So, I think...
That's funny.
I feel like most stuff that we've talked about should be on like a pro and con for like the opposite one.
Yeah.
Like that's a pro, but also it's forcing you to pay attention is a good thing too.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I it's really just flip sides of the same coin here.
This is true.
Just watch anime and you're
is
pretty
true.
cool in my book.
Yeah, agreed. All right, you want to go into some of the cons?
Yeah, this is what I added.
Yeah.
Very timely. I was watching a dub. I'm not going to talk about like specifically what shows.
Nah, we
And-
don't call people out.
Like I was watching a show and they had like a southern accent, which they're supposed to be from like a more southern part of Japan. So I get it. And I guess, they have an accent to other Japanese people if you're from like certain parts. We don't really hear that in the sub because we don't speak fluent Japanese,
Yeah.
let alone understand like different
Dialects,
nuance.
yeah.
So seeing like a character, like a Japanese character, an anime character talking a southern accent.
And not like just like a southern accent,
was
like a very campy. I'm not actually southern. I'm doing a southern accent.
Now, that accent don't bother me. Like I don't like. I'm not gonna walk up to somebody with a southern accent.
No,
and
in
say,
real life, a
"Your
real
accent is
accent."
quite funny, but
That's good. Your
but
references are out of control.
I think it's just a little bit like it. I like kind of took me out of. Or it hurt my immersion to be hearing that. I'm like, something just don't sound right here.
No, I agree. I have another example, like a show that was up north, and they did like a Minnesotan accent that was like very fake and terrible.
I didn't think it was bad. I thought
it was awful.
I don't know. I don't want to like diss these people's accent abilities because it's not like the accent in itself bothered me. It's just
the
like
context.
weird to be hearing that in
Yeah,
an
the
anime.
context.
Which like I get it. They want to make it like authentic. They're supposed to be different. But like if we wanted to watch a 100% authentic experience, we would just watch it subtitled. So I think those are some liberties. Maybe some people really enjoy that. And certainly
maybe.
nothing against the voice actors to do it.
Certainly not.
Whether
They're
it
just
was
doing
their
job.
decision or not. Like,
doing their
I get
job.
why you want to do it, but that's something for me. It's a preference thing. I prefer to not be having my characters have the accents. But I guess to the southern people, we have a northern accent, so
I feel like we have no accent.
I don't know. I feel like I have like a weird accent because I say like some words like weird, which the main one I'm thinking of is a cuss word. So I don't know if we're gonna say that.
Nah, please don't.
You know the one I'm talking about.
I don't.
Oh no, it's not a bad word, but I don't know. Like bad, not bad. Like how do you say bad?
Bad.
Yeah, I say bad.
Bad.
Yeah, it's completely different from how you're saying it.
Yeah.
Like my A's.
Both.
Well, that's just dumb. There's no L in both.
You just said it, dude.
Because you say it all the time.
Yeah, both.
It's not both.
Both.
But I think that's really a preference thing. But I look at it as a con when I'm watching a show, I guess. The other one is altering the translations to fit the mouth flaps, which once again goes to not the original intent. You know, if you take what's originally written and, you know, translate it 1-to-1, it's not going to match up with the mouth flaps. Which, if you translate it 1-to-1, it wouldn't work anyway because the Japanese language is like so structured. Like, there's so many things in Japanese that like you can't exactly translate like 100% to English. Yeah. They can mean similar things, but they don't mean it exactly. Like even like honorifics, it's sometimes weird to hear in English because they don't say like san or anything like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll just like add like a Mister. What do they do in Nagatoro? We watched that in English. Miss Nagatoro.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine. I think that still works. Nobody would really talk like that in English, but
yeah,
I think it still works. That never really bothered me. So there's just so many differences with the language, but having to really work around the mouth flaps. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work, but it does sometimes result in something, you know, being said completely differently.
Yeah.
Which I think is like another benefit for the sub is that they are, you know, the first ones to touch it, so they have a lot more freedom with that.
Well, because it's the original.
Well, yeah, I know. I said it was a benefit, but they do have a lot less freedom with the dub. So that's another struggle that they do have to work around, like the producers and the dub actors.
Yeah.
So all credit too. And what was the last thing? Was
the
once again the liberties. Sometimes they're not always great.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's still a subjective thing. But we're sharing our opinion. It's our podcast.
Exactly.
So not every liberty they take is great, in my opinion.
No, I agree. That's why I put it down. You know,
they take some good ones
for sure. For sure. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I wrote a lot of the cons, so.
Yeah. All right, so do you have any other pros or cons for either that we haven't thought of?
Not that I can think of, no. I mean, I'm sure we do if we really, really thought, but.
Yeah, if we had like a month.
This is pretty candid, yeah. I think off the cuff, that's what I got.
All right, so there's some shows I guess we'll talk about a little bit. Shows we've watched both.
For sure, yeah.
Because they're, you know, I wish I could watch everything in both, but there's not enough time in the day, unfortunately.
No, there certainly isn't. There certainly is not.
So, yeah, we could talk about these and maybe compare a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
some of them aren't
looking
that
through
different.
this. Yeah, there's not really anything too crazy that I felt was
different.
Yeah, like wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it was a bad way to put it. I don't know. But some of the things we watched in both Horimiya, we watched in both, especially the second season.
Yeah, the first season we did because we watched
it.
Yeah. Because we were watching it when it aired, we weren't like fully like ready to do like sub all the time yet. It was like during our transitional phase.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I watched subbed like more than like one episode was Oshinoko.
Yeah.
Because I caught up with the dub.
That
maybe
was a good sub.
Maybe it might have been like Yamada-kun.
Was
one of the first.
Really?
I think it was an early one. It wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
And then I think like watching Rent-A-Girlfriend, we watched both.
Yeah.
That was pretty early to be watching sub, but you know, we needed to watch that train wreck as soon as possible.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I think I'll probably do both for this one because I still do want to watch the dub.
Yeah, I'm fine with both.
For me too, like picking what I watch, sub and dub a lot of times, like if it's a show with multiple seasons, I like to stick with what I've been loyal to. I do definitely have a loyalty, but I also it's what I'm used to.
Yeah, I get that. I get that it feels the same.
Yeah, Horimiya, I think we just watched because we had already watched the original part.
The sub.
When we've gone back though to rewatch episodes from Horimiya Peace, I think we usually watch dub though.
Yeah.
I think dub is a lot easier
Well,
to
it's
do a
'cause
rewatch
we're
of.
usually watching it when we're doing something.
Like, I don't know
else.
if I've ever rewatched something subtitled. Interestingly enough, well, that just goes to how easy it is to watch a dub. On a rewatch, I don't really want to have to pay 100% attention because it's a rewatch.
Yeah.
But yeah, Horimiya. What else we watched?
Kaguya's most recent season, I watched all in sub and dub. The movie
What
we
most
watched
recent
in
season? The second season.
season 3.
Is there a third season? Yeah. Ah, okay. I think I just watched it.
You probably did.
watched it dubbed.
Yeah, I mean, I like it better than you. Obviously.
I mean, I like it a lot. I think if they ever give us another season, I think I'll probably watch both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we watched season 3 because Aaron Dismuke had voice problems.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
he
they did eventually redub it. But
Yeah, which eventually we'll have to watch. At least the rap episode.
Cliff did an awesome job.
Yeah, he really, really did. So
But yeah, that was one that I really love both. I think romance I do generally like better in sub. Like you've said, I do agree with you. But that was one that like I watched. That was such an OG show for me that I guess I do feel some sort of loyalty to.
I think too, it's like a little bit of loyalty to certain voice actors.
Oh, that is without a doubt.
Because
true,
like,
yeah.
when we're watching a show and I see like a couple that I like, I'm like, oh, we're watching this in both. Another one, when we're talking Love is War, Alia, we started watching the dub for that with one of our friends. It's another one where Aaron Dismuke voices the main character. So like, we got to go back and watch that. But I think the Alia dub actually does take some liberties in there with like certain things they say, especially with his little sister, which I don't really mind that. I think it's kind of funny, and she's like, slightly degenerate, so it makes sense. Not slightly, 100%. So it makes sense for her to be talking in that lingo.
Yeah.
But moving back though to Love is War, that takes some liberties too with the dub, especially like the narrator.
Yeah.
With Ian Sinclair, I think he does a fantastic job as the narrator.
Yeah,
and I've seen like a lot of people who agree online, so I think that's one where people, even the like sub lovers.
Sub lovers.
No, I'm trying to think of like what they think they're like better than everybody else. They still give respect to the Kaguya dub. So I think that one's a really good one to watch. I think that takes liberties in the best way here.
Yeah. No, I agree. The quintuplets, watch both. I think you watched all of the sub. I didn't watch all of the sub.
Yeah, I watched all. I actually don't think I watched the movie subtitled. Yeah. But we watched they've released 4 episodes after it has ended, and we watched those all subtitled because they
didn't dub it.
Yeah.
They're all great. Let's see, Classroom of the Elite. That was, I guess, loyalty to Justin Briner as the main character. While we went back.
Yeah, that does have a lot of our favorite.
I guess it does,
actors in it. Yeah. Most of the main characters are people.
Rag, you've already talked about.
Yeah, we talked about Rent a
Oh
Girlfriend.
yeah.
We talked about So yeah, those are ones we've watched both.
Yeah.
I think mostly at this point it's a loyalty thing, but also we don't want to wait 2 weeks for it to come out.
Yeah, it sucks. I really want to catch up on.
But also, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that going forward because how many shows we're watching.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like when the last season of My Hero came out, we weren't able to do both. I'm like, we have so much to watch.
Yeah, we do.
So yeah, maybe we could talk about a couple of our favorite dubs before we wrap up here.
Yeah, I think the first one you have down there is a good one.
I mean, this is the one that I was talking about when I say people usually most of the time when I see clips online, it's dubbed. People really do give a lot of respect to this dub, and that would be Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
I think it does go back to what you said about that's how people grew up with it.
Yeah.
So it might be like a sticking with what loyalty type thing. Mm-hmm. But I really do just love the dub for Dragon Ball. The main, I guess, draw is probably the yelling. I think they do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Like
just deeper and more.
Yeah, I mean it's a guy voicing Goku versus a lady, which Sean Shamel really does kill it, and especially in Super, they layer the yell when he's doing different forms, when he's Super Saiyan Blue. It just sounds so cool, and it sounds different based on what form he's in, which I think is awesome. Which they probably do in Japanese too, but you just notice it more in the English. And Chris Sabat brings it home as Vegeta, Piccolo, Yamcha. Obviously Yamcha.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of our favorites in that, and even like Super Ian Sinclair's in that as Whis and does a
Yeah.
fantastic job.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the biggest one where I'd argue the dub is better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to argue about that, but I would
No,
say
I
that.
see where you're coming from.
Another one which I really like the dub of, underrated dub, is Girlfriend.
Yeah, that's
This
good.
was another
we watched
one
both of this.
where they did take liberties, but I think they did it in the funniest way. They didn't add any weird lingo, really. It was just funny, the stuff they added
Yeah.
and the stuff they did different.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic one. One Piece, that's just because I've always been watching it dubbed, and I like a lot of the voice actors in it. I know One Piece does get debated, but I like what I like. Another one that's for similar reasons is Dr. Stone.
Yeah.
That one's got one of my favorite dub casts. It's just got like so many people I like. And I think it's also a little easier with that one with a lot of like scientific lingo that I already kind of don't understand,
Yeah.
at least to hear it in a language I do.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there.
And the last one I put here was Love is War, which we already kind of talked about.
Yeah, I'd say Love is War is probably my favorite dub. I mean, Dragon Ball probably. Like, I think you're just spot on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kaguya-sama's dub is just so good. I think all of the main characters act so well. I think it really brings the comedy home. And I think, yeah, Ian Sinclair as the narrator is just so funny. Like we've said multiple times, we will generally watch romance and sub. And not to say this is bad in sub. I love the sub of this as well. But because of the blend of romance and comedy, I think the comedy really shines through in English. So that might be my favorite. Like I said, aside from Dragon Ball.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think the last, and you've kind of touched on this with the loyalty thing, the last point with dubs, maybe this could have been a pro of dubs. I don't know why I put it at the very end.
That's fine. It's like a little bonus thing.
But we go to like a lot of anime conventions, at least local ones, and you can meet a lot of the dub actors there, and that's really cool. To meet people who brought some of our favorite characters to life in our local language. I think that's pretty awesome. So I think that's definitely another pro.
That's the main reason why I like going to conventions.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun to see stuff and see people cosplaying.
Yeah, I like to buy the stuff.
I guess. I
Buying
don't
stuff's
really
probably
shop
my
as
favorite
much as
part.
you. I like getting, I buy a lot of I like getting stuff signed, getting pictures, and like
Yeah.
different panels with
Yeah,
some
the
of the
panels
dub
are definitely
actors.
good, yeah.
So, and that's always such great experiences. Every single dub actor we've met have been like super awesome. to
Yeah,
talk to,
yeah,
super
great
sweet
people.
So that to me is just it's a little extra bonus, and it keeps me wanting to watch dubs so I can meet the awesome people who bring these characters to life for me. So is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we hit it all. I'm happy that we made it through the episode without a fight.
Well, it goes back to the main point here. Be respectful of each other, because it's mainly a preferential thing.
Yeah.
One can be higher quality, but, if you like what you like, I think you should... It's good to always give the other thing a chance, going with an open mind. But just be respectful of other people and their preferences, because, we're still part of the same anime community here.
Yeah, I agree. I think very well spoken.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week. Peace.